All right, guys, I'm back with the fourth debate summary about Facebook's Libra. And this one is the claim that we're going to talk about today is Facebook's Libra has the potential to compete with the US dollar as a major world currency. So in the previous debate, we talked about whether Facebook has the potential to become a sovereign currency and compete with traditional currencies. And we think and as you remember, a lot of people agreed with that and said it definitely has the potential to compete as a currency in both developed and developing nations for all the reasons we outlined in the previous video. If you didn't watch it yet, I recommend that you watch it before you come back to this. But now we're going to talk about whether we're going to debate whether Facebook's Libra has the potential to compete with the US dollar itself as a major world currency. This is a big proposition because the US dollar is the most dominant currency in the world. It's the most powerful currency. To be able to compete with that is an incredible feat. And if Facebook can do that, then it's going to be an incredible machine. Like, it's going to be more powerful than anything in the world. And so this has a lot of ramifications if this is even possible, right? So I'm going to start off with the backing side on this. And there was one argument by Marcin. Not even going to try to pronounce that name. I'm just going to call him Marcin. There's an argument by Marcin, and he says he fundamentally believes that yes, Facebook Libra does have the potential to compete with the USD in the long run. And he starts off by saying, look, Facebook has 2.4 billion monthly users. 1.5 billion of them are active daily, and that's 1/3 of the world's population. Moreover, as 190 million users just in the US, which is 2/3 of the US population. So he says even if a small fraction of those users adopt Libra, then Facebook Libra has the potential to become a transactional borderless currency and compete with the USD. Moreover, he brings up the fact that French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire has asked Facebook for some guarantees about what Libra does. And showing that, if a French minister is scared that Libra can rival its own sovereign currency, then it's likely that the U.S. regulators will also probably be scared that it's going to rival USD. So, and then finally he says, look, Libra is supposed to be implementing WhatsApp. Libra is supposed to be implemented into WhatsApp and Messenger by 2020. And if they do that, then all of a sudden, it opens up the doors to commerce within those applications. And he says, imagine if you can pay your bills using WhatsApp. That's just like a whole host of other things that's possible. And now it can definitely compete with the USD because people can use Libra to pay their bills or do other stuff. So his argument is maybe in the short run it's not possible, but in the long run he definitely sees the potential for Libra to compete with the USD. And then we had people that challenged this claim. I'm going to start off with Matrix Decoder, and he says he believes that it would take a major shakeup in global politics and finance for any currency, let alone Libra, to threaten and compete with the US dollar. And he says, I completely agree with Marcin's point on Libra's potential, but when it comes to the US dollars, you're talking big game here. He says, and he lists 4 reasons for why he thinks Libra cannot compete with the US dollar. He says, 1, the US dollar is a global reserve currency, and over 62% of central banks around the world hold USD in foreign exchange reserves. Trying to compete with that is a long shot, is his argument. Secondly, he says China and Russia have been for a long time trying to get rid of the fact that they rely on a financial system that's based on the U.S. dollars, but they haven't been able to displace it. And so the article that he links here is this article in China Economy talking about why China and Russia are struggling to abandon the U.S. dollar and forge a yuan-ruble deal. Another delay in bilateral payment system shows how tough it is to develop an alternative to U.S. dollar, but the rise in Russia-China trade means the two countries won't abandon the mission. So, the U.S. dollar is the most stable currency, so it's hard to replace it as the international currency. But, with Libra, maybe since it is a stable coin, it does have the potential. But anyway, Matrix Decoder argues that because, if China and Russia haven't been able to do it, what makes us think that Libra can actually do this? Thirdly, he says, oil is still one of the most important commodities in the world, and he doesn't see the petrodollar being replaced by Libra for oil trade. And for those of you who don't know, the petrodollar is this deal that the U.S. struck with Saudi Arabia in the 1970s to standardize oil prices in dollar terms. So it represents oil. Petrodollar represents oil in dollar terms, and he says like he doesn't see Libra replacing petrodollar anytime soon. Lastly, he says, the U.S. will defend the USD with all its military might. And I'm not sure if Facebook has the military power to defend and fight against the U.S. military. So pretty compelling, hard to argue against that. And then we had another challenge argument that came in a couple hours ago where by ICO Alert, and he also challenges this claim that Libra can compete with the U.S. dollar. Gives a few examples. He says first, there's $5 trillion that are traded on average every day on the forex market, and the U.S. is the most widely traded currency on that market. He says they have 90% of the market share of the forex market. He's like the Libra is never going to be able to steal that market share because he doesn't think that banks will want to trade Libra on these forex markets. Secondly, he says almost 40% of the world's debt is issued in dollars. And in 2017, like commercial banks of Japan, Germany, France, and UK have more dollar-denominated liabilities than those in their own currencies. So, that's a huge amount to climb for Libra, and he doesn't think that's possible. And finally, he says, since Libra is centralized and owned by major U.S. tech companies, if the U.S. government feels threatened that Libra is going to compete with the USD, they'll likely just regulate it and not let it operate in the U.S. so that his argument is like the U.S. government can just shut down the competition because, they have that power. So his argument is he doesn't believe that the U.S. Libra can be competitive with USD. Personally, I'm a little bit torn on this. This is a really tough one. I think I still need to think a little bit more about it because, the USD is the most powerful currency in the world, but you're starting to see a lot of problems with it, like overinflation, etc. And it's I can see how whether it's Libra or some kind of giant corporate-backed global medium of exchange could potentially compete with USD if it's more stable and more accessible to people, and people kind of flock onto it. But I can also see that, the USD has so much sticking power today that competing against it is really hard. I don't know where I fall yet. If I had to choose a side, I'd say I probably would challenge this claim that it can compete with the US dollar. But I'll probably come back to this debate and explain my stance again in another one.